My society, yeah, my society is an umbrella society for those patients that has no small numbers. So in our society, we have about 200 over the patient on the data list and 80 types of disorders. So different. So those who are big, they have formed their own society. So ours is called rare disease. We take everyone that has no society. So we are like the WhatsApp group. If they are big, then they can always able to move on their own society by itself. So we are members, cover all network. Like anyone, if you know of any, if they are alone, they have no society, please refer them to us. We will connect them to the others, and we can, and then we help with services to, to connect to with JKM or education or all that sort of thing. We look into all those affairs because now we have children going to school, and then we have children youth finishing school, no employment, and also so we look into all that sort of issue. Anything that you want, you just connect us. We try and get the connection. Okay. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Puan Hatijah. Basically, what we do is all NGOs, we connect with each other, and then we connect with each other, we share our resources, we provide the services together. So MND, motor neuron disease, it's a very, very rare disease. So thank you, Puan Hatijah, for collaborating with us to connect us the dots with the local government and organizations. Okay, let me introduce Mr. Hong Sun Ho. Mr. Hong is from Kuching, Sarawak. He is the founder of the Palliative Care Services. It's an organization, NGO.
My video is off.
Wait.
Yes, off. Okay.
Mr. Hong, you want to say hi to everyone?
Okay, I'm Hong from Kuching. I'm from Kuching Life Care Society, and we are providing this ambulance service, and we are going to build the first hospice and palliative care in Sarawak. At the moment, currently, we have hospital equipment on loan, patients that who are in need, especially terminally ill patients.
Okay, we have more and more people joining. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hong. Mr. Hong has been very active to provide services to provide palliative care services and then ambulance services to the communities within his reach. And then in Sarawak, in Kuching, he covers mostly from north to south and south to north. So Mr. Len is actually
MD.
Okay. All of us are here. Can we all take a group photo? Wait, can we all take a photo before we start the session? We are about to start the session soon.
They all come in, they're so missing.
Look, oh, 26.
Okay. Okay. Vicky?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now
Miss,
we have about 25 participants.
okay, we may start our session for today, breathing with a home ventilator. And then Dicky is our moderator for the session for today.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am
Good afternoon,
Vicky,
Vicky.
a new volunteer of Motor Neuron Disease Malaysia, and I'm very happy to be a volunteer. So I would like to welcome all of you. It seems like we have about 26 participants at the moment. That's a good turnout for a start. So we'll begin the session. So this is a session on breathing with a home ventilator brought to you by MND Malaysia. And today we have our guest speaker, Mr. Eddie Wong from Philips Malaysia. So just a little information for the participants here. So we have right now muted all your microphone. And if there are any questions, discussions, or doubts that you have in between the session, you can always, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat box. I hope you all can see the chat box. So you all can put all your doubts or questions there, and then we will put it forward to the speaker in between the session so that your doubts are cleared. So, okay, then I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Joe to start it officially without any further ado. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dicky. Can everyone see the screen? If you can see, give us a thumb up. All clear? Okay, great. Let's move on. All right. Thank you for joining us. This session for this afternoon is actually organized by MND Malaysia. Our name is Persatuan Penyakit Motor Neuron Malaysia. And who we are the 100% non-profit organization established back in 2014. And we are registered in Malaysia and registered under University Malaya Medical Center to support our motor neuron disease MND patients, MND communities. So basically what we do, we deliver supports in 3 areas. That is the neurology to diagnose our MND patient. And we do provide palliative care service and supports in our hospital. And we do deliver in neuro rehabilitation supports. So if any of your friends you come across that's having diagnosis of the motor neuron disease or have any symptoms to get a second opinion, they can actually contact us. So how do you connect with us? This is actually our Facebook. You can just type MND Malaysia and then just please like us and follow our activities. And then shall you have any questions, you can actually message us and then we will reply and we will point you the directions on what to do next. So please do like us and then share our page out. The next, this is our Instagram. The Instagram, we frequently update what's happening and then what activities we are doing to connect everyone, to connect the patients with the community outside. And then this is our YouTube channel. You can just type Motor Neuron Disease Malaysia, and there are some videos and some understanding of what motor neuron disease are. And then we do provide eye tracking communicator for patients with ALS. There are some playlists inside on caregiving and other useful resources from around the world. So basically we link up together to share the resources together. So yes, we are NGO, we need donations. So these are our bank account. This is our bank account with Maybank. So if anyone that wants to donate to us, they can actually donate to us. Our email address is mndmalaysia@gmail.com and contact number it's written here. So this session, breathing with home ventilator, actually MND Malaysia, we do provide list of mechanical home ventilator to our patient of ALS. So throughout this year, since 2015, MND Malaysia have been working together with Philips Malaysia. Philips Malaysia have been supporting us in providing troubleshooting technical adjustment to the mechanical home ventilators. And then any customer service or complaint related issues, we contact Philips Malaysia. And then Philips Malaysia does provide an educational platform for our patient of ALS and carer for ALS. It's a pals and cows or family members about home ventilator assistance. And we do provide mechanical home ventilator performance. Philips Malaysia does the performance follow-up with the pals and then on technical support for the ventilators. So what they do is they provide non-medical supports, anything related to the mechanical home ventilator. Philips Malaysia does supports for our community. So if there are anyone that wants to purchase the unit and all these things, Philips Malaysia, under the sleep and respiratory care division, they don't provide selling direct to the end user. So shall anyone requires to purchase, they can contact their own medical supplies company to inquire the purchase of the home ventilators. And this is our guest speaker, Mr. Eddie Wong. He's from Philips Malaysia. He's the country manager of Philips Malaysia under Sleep and Respiratory Care Division. So he have a few roles to build and manage the channel partners, the distributors and all these things to provide like Philips Hospital and home respiratory care solutions to the hospitals. He is also a registered polysomnographic technologist. So I'll pass the mic to Mr. Eddie so that he can introduce himself. Eddie?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Let me share my screen first. Hold on. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Please type 1 if you can see my screen. And am I talk loud enough? If I'm not talk loud enough, please let me know. Then I can increase my volume. I'm not using any speaker or earphone with me. So I'm talking to my laptop now. So thank you for MND Malaysia inviting me to be a guest speaker to run this workshop. I will call this as a workshop, even though we cannot see face to face under this new normal. So I believe ever since COVID-19 started, everyone have a lot of challenges to meet at home or even at work, especially for those patients who use a ventilator at home. So this is how MND Malaysia initiated this workshop with me and Philips. I have been working together with MND Malaysia for almost, I think, 5 to 6 years now, since I joined Philips about 8 years ago. So I'm very happy today to be here to share with you what we have learned together along the pathway with the patient, especially those who use our ventilator at home. Even though I play a role as a country manager for this Philips Malaysia and Sleep and Respiratory Care business unit, I always work together with NGO, doctors, and also sometimes I visit patients. I believe some of the patients who attended this talk today, who I have been visiting their house before, especially whenever there is a problem or there is alarms with the ventilator where we cannot solve over the phone, so we have to visit the patient. And I still remember my first experience visiting a patient. The husband name is Melvin. I'm not sure Melvin is here. His wife is suffering this motor neuron disease. So when I carry my machine to let his wife to try. I think it's around 9:30 p.m. No matter how hard I try, his missus is keep on crying. So after half an hour, Mr. Melvin asked me to teach him how to operate the machine. So after I taught him another hour, I left the house. After 1 week, he called me back. He said finally he managed to convince his wife to try the BiPAP A40, the ventilator, but he forgotten how to set up the machine. That time I remember it was weekend, so I told him, can you give me 2 hours? Let me make a video, I'll upload to YouTube. And instead of coming to your house, 1 hour journey. So I think this will be more time, saving more time for both of us. So I make the video on YouTube the first time in my life. In fact, that time I do not have any, just use my phone. I do not have any good camera. So it's in my bedroom, I make the video. If you are interested, you can go to YouTube and search for A40, then you see my face on YouTube. That is how the video starting. So after a year, Mr. Melvin called me back after the wife used the machine. And that time the wife passed away. So he called me back, called me out, and just to thank me and have lunch together. So I still remember he told me that the most difficult part is not to take care his wife for more than 4 years. The most difficult part is to take care how to assist his wife to pass motion, because all the muscle is weakened. So included the lung diaphragm and the whole body muscle. So that's the difficulty for to pass motion. So he has to use his hand. He told me this is his most difficulty part. So from here onwards, I realized that whatever we did on the field, included our visit to patient house, is really meaningful, because we really help people, not only by selling or by answering their call to troubleshoot the machine, but also because of all this human touch. But with COVID-19 now, I think very difficult for everyone to have this human touch. So that's why we have this initiative to start this talk. So let me go through what is required in home mechanical ventilation, what kind of knowledge and skill is needed. So number one is to understand the disease process. You have to talk to your doctor in depth. How the patient going to progress over time from the start without using the ventilator. Then they use a ventilator using the mask. And then if they agree, they give the consent to the doctor. Ended up, they might want to use invasive ventilation using a tracheostomy, via a tracheostomy tube. So this ventilator dependency and disease, based on the disease progresses, you have to discuss clearly from the very beginning or over the time with your physicians. And the second one is knowledge and understanding about ventilation modes, including ventilator parameters and alarm limits. Most of the time when the patient call me, if they cannot, if my so-called distributor or channel partner cannot answer them, like those some patients very technical, maybe their family is an engineer. Most of the time I found that. So they will ask why the doctor give me this mode ST, what's the difference in pressure control modes, and why this tighter volume is keep on dropping, and how come suddenly my patient, my wife or my spouse need to admit to hospital very often recently, and why this alarm is keep alarming in my ventilator. They have all this kind of alarm. That's why I see there's a need to at least give you some idea why the doctor prescribe you ST modes, or maybe from the beginning X mode, spontaneous mode, then ST mode, spontaneous time mode, then pressure control, and later on with tracheostomy change to SIMV. I think there's a need there to understand more. So that's why I have this, I will focus more on the second part, knowledge and understanding about ventilation mode and settings. The third one is interface. Okay, most of the time, the problem arises whenever there is a problem on the leaks, the air leaks, especially for those who use mask ventilation. So I will spend some time to talk about the mask interface so that you know how to overcome the leak alarms that will cause the tidal volume, the volume of air that enter the lung to promote oxygenation fail. Yes, because of the air leaks. So I will focus sometimes on the ventilation interface by showing you more pictures than words. I don't like words whenever present, but sometimes no choice, because home mechanical ventilation is a very wide topic and very technical. So please excuse me. Some slide I have to put more words than pictures. So the final four I will not discuss here. But for the secretion management, I have a good news to MND Society and all the members here. End of August, Philips Malaysia has invited a speaker from Australia. We will host a Zoom, not a Zoom, it's an online meeting. We will send a link to through MND Malaysia. So you can watch the video presentation from Professor Amanda Piper from Australia. She will talk about how to manage the secretion at home by using a device called Cough Assist. Okay, so last part is talking about medical backup during emergency. Because you're using ventilator at home, so whenever the ventilator fails, or whenever the disease progresses, or whenever you have emergency, you must plan ahead how to have this medical backup during emergency. For this part, I will not discuss in detail, but I will show you the video link end of the my presentation, so you can watch the YouTube video which created by one hospital from Singapore. So I will give you a detail end of the slide. So my agenda today, basically, like already mentioned by Dr. Vicky and Joe just now, what is mechanical ventilation, and how mechanical ventilator can assist in breathing, and what parameters to monitor during mechanical ventilation, and how to manage ventilator alarms. When I cover the first topic, this will be more technical, so you need to spend time to listen, or you think that this is difficult to understand, just make a coffee or get a drink for yourself. Because everything is recorded, so maybe later on you can come back and watch this what is mechanical ventilator section by watching the replay video in the Facebook under MND.
Yeah. We will do the replay.
You record this, right?
Yeah, it's on. It's recorded, so we will display the replay after the sessions.
Okay. So if you find it's technical, please excuse me. You can watch the replay, because this is very difficult to teach what is mechanical ventilator. Even though sometimes we give training in the hospital for some new doctors who are new to mechanical ventilation, we found that this is the most difficult understand part. Okay, but when come to the second session, when I talk about the interface to use along with the mechanical ventilator, so that it can assist your breathing perfectly. So this is a part you really need to spend time to learn, because this breathing circuit, patient mask interface, humidifier, supplementary oxygen are the most commonly question asked by most of my patients who call me or text me. So this is the most important part. You must spend time here. And the third one also important for those want to know, doctor gave me this setting. Does the patient receive the right outcome from the ventilators? So I will guide you 4 parameters to monitor during mechanical ventilation. So based on the up and down numbers from these 4 parameters, you know whether the patient is performing well or performing worse, and what is the next course of actions. So this is very important as well for those who really, let's say if you have a home nurse, you want to know, or if you do not have a home nurse, you have someone at least know what parameters to track the progress of the patient when using ventilator. This is very important to understand the 4 parameters. And finally, the how to manage ventilator alarm. I will show you a video from Philips. The video is using the life support ventilator Trilogy 200. So you can watch the video at the end of the session. So even though we put the Q&A at the last, it doesn't mean that you have to reserve your question until the end of the sessions. Along the way, along my presentation, you can just type your question in the chat box. Depends on the browser or the Android or iOS you use. You have to locate where is a chat box. And then from the chat box, you just type your questions. I will welcome more questions from patients. And for care work provider who join this, if you know me, you can reserve your questions privately so that we give more room for patients to ask the question. For doctors who are here joining the talk, you can also ask the question if you like. But I would try to limit the time here because for those who are interested to ask about price, Philips do not sell directly the machine, our products to the patient. We are using a channel partner. So I could not answer your pricing question here. So you can later on, you can maybe ask MND Malaysia, okay? After this talk. So let me start with what is mechanical ventilation. Basically, these are the solutions from Philips when we talk about the ventilator, starting from the sleep disorder breathing to respiratory insufficiency, and from CPAP to advanced BiPAP to life support ventilators. So for the home ventilated patient, normally they come from these 5 groups. They are either suffering chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, obesity, hyperventilation, recessive and obstructive disorder, chest wall deformity, or neuromuscular disease. Today, I think most of the audience is from the MND Society, so we will focus more on neuromuscular disease. Just to confess to you, I'm not a doctor, so I will not touch anything related to clinical settings, how your what happened to your disease. So all these clinical questions you have to direct it to your doctors. Okay, not to me. I'm not a doctor. Okay, I'm a registered polysomnographic technologist. I help the doctor to diagnose sleep problem for those patients have apnea, stop breathing during sleep, or reduce breathing during sleep. So that is my profession, but not the I'm not a clinician to answer you on this disease management. Okay, I have summarized 2 groups here: life support ventilator and non-life support ventilator. Okay, on the top here you can see the pathway. So before you start the ventilator at home, your doctor will diagnose you, DX is diagnosis, and then the doctor will discuss with you how your journey when you want to use a ventilator at home from the very beginning to the end stage. So you may start the NIV at night first. When you are still a deep breather, you can trigger your own spontaneous breathing. But along the time period, if your diaphragm weakens, you become more dependent to the ventilator. You may start the NIV day and night. You may use the ventilator more than 16 hours a day, or maybe 24 hours non-stop. And some patients, if you agree to have tracheostomy or invasive ventilation at the end stage, when you really cannot breathe, you need to fully dependent on ventilator. That's the time you need to be tracked, put a tracheostomy tube on the neck. So this clinical pathway, you need to discuss seriously with your doctor so you can decide what ventilator to purchase to use at home. Because in the market, there are many ventilators. Just how the slide already show you, there are many type of ventilator with different costs available in the market. So I divided this table. I made this table to show you more clearly how the difference between life support and non-life support ventilator. Basically, the life support ventilator meaning it can perform invasive and non-invasive ventilation. So when the patient progress at the end stage, if they need to use a tracheostomy tube or invasive ventilation, then they need to purchase a life support ventilator. If the patient consent is not to be tracheostomized, then they can choose the non-life support ventilator. Non-life support ventilator, we are referring to non-invasive ventilator, or sometimes we call this is a mask ventilation. Okay. So for life support ventilator, there are different type of tubing you can choose from between dual limb or single limb. For the mask ventilation, the non-life support ventilator, you can choose only the single limb. Okay. And lead valve basically is talking about the acceleration valve. So when you use a single limb tubing to deliver the air from the ventilator to the airway and lungs, you need to have a acceleration valve so that you do not rebreathing the carbon dioxide. You know, we inhale to get the oxygen, we exhale to expel out all the carbon dioxide. So you need the acceleration valve in order to flush out all the CO2 so that you will not become hypercapnic. Hypercapnic means when the CO2 build up in your body, your brain will send a signal to your lung so that you will trigger more breathing effort. So that means your body CO2 level become building up. So that's why lead valve and to make sure there's no secretion of phlegm going inside the lead valve is always very important. Okay. So ventilation mode, basically for life support ventilator, they have two different different modes you can choose from: volume control or pressure control. For long life support, it's only one type of mode of ventilation, which is pressure control ventilation, or in another term we call bi-level positive airway pressure. In short, we call BiPAP. Some patients when call me, they will say my BPAP machine. Okay, BPAP machine also fine, but among the care provider, we call this machine as a BiPAP. Okay, so in terms of alarm, life support ventilator have a more complete alarm. They try to copy all the alarm from the ICU ventilators and put into here. So that's why I put their full range of alarms. Long life support ventilator, they have a basic range of alarms. You may have a question here and ask me, does this basic range of alarm is good enough? Okay, when come to the parameter, monitored parameter and alarms, I will show you 4 parameters to monitor, which relate also the alarm settings. From there, you will understand, even though this is basic range, you are safe, you are well protected, even though the alarm is basic range for the non-life support ventilator. For battery-wise, if you are using more than 16 hours per day on ventilator, you must have the backup battery at home, so that in case any emergency, you can move the patient using your car, or some ambulance they do not provide the ventilator service. You can use your own ventilator with the portable battery to ventilate the patient while patient in transport from home to hospital. So that's why life support must always remember you must have a backup battery. And for long life support, it's optional. You can choose to purchase an optional battery or just ignore it because it's not life support. Okay, and another part I'm not highlight in battery here. You must learn how to use a manual resuscitator, or layman term we call the back valve mask, or manual bagging. So you must find time. The family member must find time to learn from the nurses or hospital or clinics how to use a manual bag to bag the patient in case if you do not have a spare ventilator, or spare your ventilator spoil at home, at least you can use a manual bag to manually bag the patient to ventilate the patient. So accessory, I will have a slide to show you all the picture, what kind of accessory you can have. So basically the goal of NIV, non-invasive ventilation, or non-invasive positive pressure ventilation or mask ventilation, is to help the patient at home to relieve symptoms, to reduce work of breathing so that you can breathe comfortably, to improve or stabilize gas exchange. And the last 3 is very important, but I found that it's not really having awareness in Malaysia, in US, in Europe, how to improve the duration, quality of sleep, how to maximize quality of life, how to prolong the survival time. This is very popular in US and Europe, but in Malaysia, I think most of the time the family will prefer to put patient in the hospital instead of at home. Or even though at home, I think most of the time the patient they are just staying at home. They are not going out with wheelchair or going to cinema with their ventilator, or have some outdoor activities with their ventilator. I think that is we need some awareness or help from any care providers to promote more quality of life and prolong lifetime. Okay, I stop here for a while. Is there any questions? Joe, Dr. Yuki?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, one time so kind.
Is there any desperate question need answer now?
Please continue. No
Okay.
questions at the moment.
So this picture to show you two category of life support ventilator and non-life support ventilator. So from Philips, Trigy Evo, Trigy 100, 200, 2, this is the life support ventilator. The bottom two, BiPAP A40, BiPAP SD AirVap is the non-life support ventilators. Okay. So at the bottom left picture here, there is a patient using a mouthpiece ventilator. So if your clinical condition allow, when you away, you can also choose to use the mouthpiece ventilation. Whenever needed, you just grab the mouthpiece to have the ventilator air from the ventilator to sustain your breathing. Then I will have a separate slide, one slide to talk about the mouthpiece ventilation. So this is just to let you know that in brief, what is the specification difference between the life support ventilator to the non-life support ventilator. So like I mentioned earlier, life support ventilator can perform invasive, non-invasive. Non-life support ventilator can only do non-invasive ventilation. And in terms of pressure, life support ventilator can support up to 60 centimeter water of pressure. Okay, pressure means how much the air can enter our lung to promote oxygenation depends on the pressure setting when the pressure mode is in use. So the higher the pressure can go inside the lung, more air, more volume of air can enter the lungs. For ALS patients, normally you do not require pressure more than 30, especially when you use a mask to perform mask ventilation. Any mask on us, when we set the ventilator, if you try to set up to 30 cm, you feel very discomfort because the pressure is too high. Unless you're using invasive ventilator, then you need higher than 30 centimeter water of pressure. Okay, so that's why 30 cm is more than enough. So in terms of respiration rate, for the long-life support ventilator, it can support up to 40 breaths per minute or 30 breaths per minute. So you hardly go beyond 30 breaths per minute for ALS patient as well when you use a mask ventilation. For rise time is a comfort settings. I will cover later when come to the mode of ventilation. And these are the mode under each type: pressure control ventilation or volume control ventilation. I will cover more details in the mode of ventilation slide. And in case doctor prescribe you supplementary oxygen, all of these devices can also add oxygen, but only this life support ventilator, when you add oxygen, it will not cause any loosen alarms because the oxygen is directly blended. There's a blender inside the machine to blend the air, to mix the air and oxygen together without causing alarms. But when you use the way to bleed in the oxygen using a connector, so this is called circuit bleed in, it will cause nuisance alarms. That's why normally patients who choose to use a long-life support ventilator, normally those patients do not require supplementary oxygen. They do not have oxygen problem. They only have carbon dioxide problem. They are hypercapnic. They are not hypoxemic. So you have to discuss with your doctor to decide when you need oxygen. Normally, LS patients do not need to use oxygen at home.
Eddie, can I interrupt you for a second? Can everyone see Eddie's PowerPoint slides? Can you see? Can? All can see? Okay. All right, Eddie, you may continue.
Okay, for the alarms, I will cover more later. And before you go home, normally what happened was the care provider, the ventilator vendor will go to your hospital. They will give you the ventilator trial for free. And then they will copy whatever setting from the hospital ventilator to the home ventilator and let you to use in the hospital for several days. And by the time you need to go home, this prescription will be confirmed by your doctors. And I will fully encourage you to have this prescription keep with you also, so that you know what have to be set in case your machine spoil, you change to a new machine. At least you have all this in place to copy into a new ventilator when you are at home. Okay, let me cover this mode of ventilation now. For those who think that this is too technical for you, you can just give yourself a rest. I will spend about 10 minutes talking about this. You can have a coffee or a drink or drinks with you. Okay, so what is mode of ventilation, or what is a ventilator? Basically, ventilator is to help you to move the air in and out of the lung, correct? And how the air going to move in and out of the lung depends on the mode of ventilation. So basically, for the home BiPAP, or for those patients who normally use a mask ventilator, you only have the machine you purchase. The doctor will only set either 4 of these settings, 4 of this mode. They call S mode, T mode, ST mode, or pressure PC modes. So S stands for spontaneous mode, T stands for time, ST stands for spontaneous time, P stands for pressure control. So if the patient is a tracheostomy, if you have a tracheostomy tube put in your neck, so the doctor normally will use either one of these modes, SIMV mode or pressure control mode. SIMV stands for synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation. PC stands for pressure control, with or without AVAPs. AVAP is a special mode from Philips. It stands for average volume assured pressure support ventilation. So where the doctor will set a target volume, so the machine will automatically adjust the pressure in case there is a changes in lung mechanics. If you look at this table on the right top here, you will see under pressure control modes, the tighter volume you cannot set. It depends on the lung mechanic of the patient. You can only set IPAP, EPAP, I time, or the flow also cannot set, is always fixed as decelerating. Okay, you do not need to understand this, but I need you to understand what is lung mechanics. So lung mechanics refer to our lung compliance and airway resistance. Our lung is just like a rubber band. So when we inhale through the ventilator, the air will be forced to go inside our trachea and go inside our lung units when we inhale. But when we exhale, because our diaphragm, our lung chest wall is like a rubber band, so the exhalation is always a passive effort. It will pull back our lung back to the normal state. So that's why if you notice that when come to ventilation setting under each mode, there's no setting called exhalation time. There's only setting called rate and I time. Okay, beside the pressure setting, IPAP, EPAP, there's only rate and I time. So basically, these 4 modes, you only need to learn 4 settings if you are using ST mode or pressure control mode at home. For time mode, is hardly used by any patient under ALS, unless the patient have a spinal cord injury at C3 or C4 cervical, because the patient cannot breathe by his or her own because of spinal cord injury. Then normally this group of patient will use the time mode. So just forget about time mode here. Okay, for S mode, you can see S mode has only IPAP and EPAP setting without the rate and I time, which means if you are using this S mode from the very beginning, after when you first diagnosed with ALS or motor neuron disease, when you first try to experience the BiPAP ventilator, some doctor may put S mode on you because you can breathe actively, you can still breathe like normal. That's why you do not rate the machine to help to deliver any controlled breath to you, which fall under rate and I time settings. Okay, so you can see rate and I time setting here is blank for S mode. So normally S mode is for those new user. If you still can breathe normally, you start to use S mode. Okay, then slowly you progress to ST mode, and then slowly you progress to pressure control mode. Okay, if you choose to use tracheostomy, invasive ventilation, then slowly you progress to pressure control SIMV or volume control SIMV, or you can, or if you do not have life support ventilator, you only have a non-life support ventilator, then you choose to use a pressure control modes with AVAPs. Okay, so I finished this slide here. I stopped for a while. Is there any question regarding here? Before I move on to explain to you how the pressure rise, the air inflate our lung, and then the air close our lung to promote ventilation.
You can continue, Mr. Eddie.
Okay, I continue. So how does the NIV or pipette work? Okay, in order to know how the ventilation works when we use the mask, we need to understand the three questions. Number one, when to start a breath, which related to one setting called trigger. Number two, how a breath or inspiration is delivered. This is relating to all the setting we call control variables, which is the respiratory rate, the I time, the IPAP and EPAP pressure. Number three is when to stop a breath or when to cycle a breath. So this is basically depends on whether this is a machine cycle or this is a patient own effort to stop the breathing. Okay, in order to understand these three questions, you need to know how the mode of ventilation defined. The mode of ventilation defined by the breath type. You can see from here, I don't know, okay, you see my cursor here. So you have the ventilator, we can deliver three different type of breath type. They call mandatory breath type, assisted breath type, or spontaneous breath type. If I go back to my previous slide, you can see here the breath type here. So under ST mode, you have two breath types called spontaneous or mandatory. Under pressure control mode, you have two breath types called mandatory assisted. So the difference is here, the empty box is here. So what is the difference between the spontaneous breath type and assisted breath type is, so this tool is triggered by patient. Patient must have the effort to trigger. Then only the machine will raise the pressure to inflate the lung, will deliver the air to fill up the lungs. But when come to the stop, the cycle, when to stop a breath, the assisted breath will follow the I time setting. The spontaneous breath type will follow the patient effort. Patient decide when to stop the breathing based on your own efforts. That's why if I go back to slide, previous slide, you see S mode is spontaneous, here is assisted. So when you progress, if the doctor found that you have a lot of CO2 built up in your body, especially at night when you sleep, and then the next day morning you complain, you have headache, you are not sleeping well, you feel like the air is not enough. So when you go back to hospital to follow up, they check your blood CO2 level. They found that you are hypercapnic, you have more CO2 built up. Maybe that time the doctor will change your mode to ST mode, to pressure control mode, so that when the machine deliver, when you trigger a breath, the time, the cycle time to end the breath, it will follow the I time, so that you have more time to breathe in more air or more oxygen. So I hope my explanation able to explain the difference between mandatory assisted spontaneous here. It's a bit technical, but you can watch the replay later if you want to come back to this section. So how the breath delivered, if the breath is mandatory breath, if I go back here, you see the mandatory, all the mode here, ST or pressure control mandatory, meaning the machine or the doctor or the care provider will set these two settings inside the machine called respiratory rate and I time. So if the rate is 10 breaths per minute, you know 1 minute is 60 seconds, right? If your rate setting is 10, 60 seconds divided by 10, which means every 6 seconds, mandatory, the machine will deliver 1 breath to help you to breathe. Okay, and how long the machine the air will enter your lung when you inhale, it depends on the inspiratory time setting. So let's say if your breath rate is 10, 6 seconds is 1 breath. If the doctor follow a IE ratio 1:2, then your I time will be 2 seconds, your acceleration time will be 4 seconds. So the doctor will set I time at 2 seconds for you. So when the pressure rise, when the machine start to deliver pressure to you based on the rate we set, so the pressure will rise up to the end of inhalation here. This will take 2 seconds. And from the time the pressure rise, the inspiration starting, until the time the expiration end before the next breath start. So this doctor breath time is 6 seconds. Okay, so you have 2 seconds inhale, 4 seconds exhale, and this 2 plus 4 is 6 seconds, 1 breath. Why 6 seconds? Because your respiratory rate is 10. So 10 breaths per minute. 1 minute is 60 seconds. 60 seconds divided by 10 breaths per minute settings. So it becomes 6 seconds, 1 breath. And why the I time, why the inhalation here is 2 seconds? Because your I time setting is 2 seconds. So that's why indirectly your acceleration time, you do not need to set, so it becomes 4 seconds. Okay. So if the rate change to 12 seconds, 12 breaths per minute, 60 seconds divided by 12. So this will become 5 seconds, 1 breath. So if the IE ratio is 1:2, so 1/3 times 5, so 1.32 seconds will become your inspiratory time, or 1.67. So I need a calculator. 5 seconds divided by 3 is how much? 1.67, is it? Okay, someone try to calculate. Then you
divide by 3, 1.66.
1.66, 1.67 seconds. So it become your inspiratory time. So depends on what mode you use. So if you use ST mode, then you have the mandatory breath and the spontaneous breath. If you use the pressure control mode, then you have the mandatory breath and assisted breath, which allow patient to trigger the breath by their own, which means even though your rate setting is 10, do you allow to trigger the 11 breath, the 12 breath, the 13 breath, 14 breath? The answer is yes, because the mode you selected consists of either assisted breath or spontaneous breath under ST mode or pressure control mode. So you allowed to have additional breath support by the machine. But how long this air can sustain during inhalation, it depends whether it's follow the I time or follow the patient effort, spontaneous effort. Okay. And how much the pressure rise to enter the air into the lung for oxygenation depends on the IPAP and EPAP setting. So pressure rise based on the IPAP you set, the lung will close based on the EPAP setting. So you see here the lung will open and close. So which means the air will move inside the lung and out of the lung by using these two levels of pressure called EPAP and IPAP. So when you minus these two pressure level, IPAP minus EPAP, this is called pressure support. Sometimes when we talk to doctor, we ask doctor, how much pressure support you need for this patient? The doctor will tell us. Sometimes we just ask how much IPAP, EPAP setting for this patient. But how much volume of air can enter your lung depends on the pressure support. The difference is bigger between IPAP, EPAP, means more higher pressure support, means more volume of air you will get. Okay. Of course, the IPAP cannot be too high until you feel not comfortable, until and EPAP also normally the doctor will titrate this EPAP, IPAP in the hospital to make sure you feel comfortable with this pressure setting. Okay. But you must understand one key point is the difference between IPAP and EPAP, or we call pressure support. This will decide how much tidal volume enter your lung. Okay, why I put target tidal volume here, the common variable, because it depends on ventilator. Some ventilator allow you to have a special mode to target the ventilator. But most of the ventilator you're using now do not have this target tidal volume. That's why you need to get this answer from the doctor. What is the desired tidal volume to maintain the patient optimal oxygen level in the body? Because you are setting the pressure, you're not setting the volume when you use a BiPAP ventilator. Okay, the volume, how much volume depends on the pressure support, depends on the gradients, the difference between IPAP and EPAP. Okay, rise time basically talking about the slope here. You see the pressure waveform here, the pressure rise. How fast the pressure rise from EPAP to achieve IPAP? How fast the air enter your lung to open your lung? This setting called rise time. Normally, the rise time setting is you can set either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. But how fast it depends at your comfort level, or in clinical term we call depends on your disease, lung disease, obstructive or restrictive disease. Okay, normally rise time is a common setting where the ventilator provider, when they come to your house, if you complain any discomfort, after they check, you do not have any secretion problem, you do not have any connection problem on the tubing and mask. If you still complain about discomfort, the only setting they allow to set normally is only the rise time. They are not allowed to change the EPAP, IPAP settings, because this is a doctor prescription. But rise time, normally they will help you set, or they will guide your family how to set the rise time. When you complain the air is too fast, enter my lung, or too slow, entering my lung. Okay, so you now know what is rise time. 1 indicate fast rise, 6 indicate the slowest rise. So normally they will set between 2 to 4 for the rise time for you to use at home. So now whoever are using currently the ventilator at home, you can go back and check your rise time setting to adjust for your comfort level if you want. Or you can also consult your doctor if they allow you to adjust this setting by your own. Okay. So let me show you the next one for the mode of ventilation and setting. Okay, maybe before I show you this, I show you the rate and eye time. Okay, upon your doctor prescription, you see the backup rate here, 10 up to 25, right? So when you can do more breathing at your own effort, you maybe you start from 10 or 12, okay? But along the time, when we need to depend more on ventilator to deliver the mandatory breath support, then this breath per minute, this rate setting will increase, okay? And once you increase the rate, or once you change the rate setting, you need to readjust your eye time according to what IE ratio the doctor prescribed to you. Normally for LA is 1 to 2 or 1 to 2.2 or 2.5. You need to talk to your doctor. What is your IE ratio to maintain your oxygenation, a good ventilation? So based on this rate, then you readjust your eye time accordingly. Okay. But normally you do not need to know this part because the care provider will help you to adjust the settings. And what is very important to know the trigger variable. Just now my chart already show you, right? You're allowed to trigger your own breathing. On top of the set respiratory rate or mandatory breath rate, all the patients, when you use ST mode or pressure control mode, you're allowed to trigger additional breath support from the ventilator. But how the machine going to detect you have the effort to trigger a breath? So that's why you need to understand the trigger variables. Okay, I do not want to bore you with all these 6 aspects. You can just this is a reference here. But what I want you to know is from this article, Choosing a Ventilator for Home Mechanical Ventilation, Professor Grigorotti from Italy already mentioned. In the market, there are 3 types of flow trigger settings. But for our home patient who use a trilogy or this BiPAP ventilator at home, normally you do not need to worry about this because we have a technology called digital auto track, which help to monitor each breath with an automatic breath triggering. So you do not need to worry about how to set the trigger sensitivity or cycle sensitivity to decide when to end the breath when the breath is a spontaneous trigger breath. Okay, so I will stop this part here because this sounds very technical to most of you. So unless you have any question, then I will come back here to describe more. Okay. Any questions?
Any question from the crowd, from our audience? No? Puan Hadijah?
I am new to this. This is all for adult use. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Listening to all this your explanation, how fast can a patient or the caregiver adjust to the application when they go home? And is the ventilator provided to them? They hire or purchase, or all this other thing like oxygen and all that? How do they get those supplies from? Those are my present questions.
Yeah. Okay, Puan Hadijah. So to answer your questions, normally this is the discussion between the patient and the hospital and the doctors. And all the hospital in Malaysia, they have they know which ventilator, which modes, which ventilation setting is relevant, even though now you're talking about pediatric patient. So, but whatever I have explained here, all this is also covered for pediatric because this is talking about how the ventilator works and what kind of modes. But if you want to go into detail what kind of setting is relevant for pediatric patient, I think this presentation today is not designed for the pediatric patient as a special group.
What I mean is when they go home, do they have to have a special room? Because this ventilator using oxygen and all that, so those precautions has to be all taken care also, isn't it?
Yeah, the precaution I covered at another sections coming soon. So if you can give me some time, I will cover this in my following slide about the precaution of use when you use the oxygen at home along with the ventilators.
Okay, and is this the same ventilators that is being used for the COVID patient?
Yes, it's the same ventilator. But definitely not the basic BiPAP. We also have the life support ventilator or ventilator come with oxygen blender. That is the common ventilator used for the COVID-19 patient who normally suffering this hypoxemic problem, means low oxygen problems.
So if the patient, if they need it at home, do they purchase or hire the ventilator?
It depends on whether they want it to use, let's say, more than 2 years. If they decide to use the ventilator more than 2 years, I would suggest they purchase a ventilator. If they think the ventilator will not be occupied, will not be utilized and used for more than 2 years, leasing or rental is a better option, more cost-effective options.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Hadija.
Okay, so I proceed.
Yes, Eddie, you may proceed.
Okay, so this slide is just to show you how the seat or mouthpiece ventilation looks like. So if the patient, neuromuscular patient, able to breathe, trigger more spontaneous breathing. Later on, when come to the monitor parameter, I will show you how to know a patient can actively breathing by their own. There's an indicator on the ventilator you can monitor. Okay, of course, you can also discuss with your doctor if the patient is fit to use mouthpiece ventilation during daytime when they awake. Okay, when they want to sleep, then they change to mask ventilation. Okay. So how mechanical ventilator can assist in breathing? So to make sure the breathing is perfect when using the ventilator, we have to know all these components of the ventilator, which is part of the ventilator. We call the breathing circuits, the patient mask interface, humidifier, supplementary oxygen. I will cover one Hadija question when it comes to supplementary oxygen, secretion management, and tracheostomy care. So I do not want to go through this with you, but I want you to look at this slide because most of the time the patient using this kind of setup at home, where they use a home ventilator, using a single limb tubing instead of dual limb tubing, like those IC ventilator, you're using a single limb tubing. And this port, number one, is the bacterial filter. It's very important you put at the ventilator port before you attach the patient tubing, because you do not want the bacteria to expose to the room air, or you do not want the whoever visit the patient or whoever handle the tubing or change the tubing or do suctioning, causing the bacteria or viral go back to machine and infect the patient. So bacterial filter is a must when you use, especially when you come to hospital, use a ventilator in the hospital. Because some home patients, I visited them, they do not apply the bacterial filter at home because some doctor will tell them at home is safe, as compared to hospital. But I will really advise, because of COVID-19, I think we need to start the concern to put the bacterial filter at the ventilator port. And some even ask me, can I put more filter even though proximal to the patient? Here the patient, I add another one bacterial filter. Yes, you have that concern, you can also add one filter here. But once you add this filter, because this filter attached near the mask or tracheostomy tube, when the patient exhale, the exhale air will contain the heat and the moisture. When you try to exhale in front of mirror, what do you see on the mirror? Or you just try to exhale in front of your palm, your hand. what do you feel on your hand? You feel heat and you feel warmness and you feel the moisture, right? You feel
The
some
moisture.
water vapor, right? So
Yeah.
the water vapor or the secretion may come to this filter over time. And once this filter has this build up of water or secretion, it will block the air from entering the ventilator, it will block the air from entering the patient. Okay, because of the secretion, because of the moisture build up at this device here, the filter here. And sometimes some patients, if they do not use, especially those tracheostomy patients, normally they should use the humidifier. If they do not use humidifier, sometimes they put the heat and moisture exchanger. One device can help to retain the heat and moisture, so that when the air before entering the patient, it will reheat and remoisturize before you enter the patient. Okay, so most of the time the problem is because of this HME or filter adding here. Okay, because the air cannot entering because of the increased secretion or water blockage here. So you have to check maybe 2 to 3 hourly to make sure there's no air, no secretion building up in this device here when you put this device near the patient, okay, near the interface. So on the top here is all the interface you can choose when you use the life support ventilator. You can choose between non-invasive or invasive, a mask or the tracheostomy tube, or in the ICU they use the Android tube. Okay.
Eddie, question.
Yeah.
For the mouthpiece connected filter, if let's say the patient is using the NIV for 6 to 8 hours a day, how long do they change the filter? How frequent?
For the NIV, you're talking about NIV,
for NIV,
right?
yes. For the filter.
For bacterial filter here, normally my experience with the home patient is 1 day, some 3 days, some even 7 days. But in the hospital, of course, you need to change daily to prevent the bacterial virus to build
infections.
But at home, if you believe that your home is clean, free from a bacterial virus, maybe you can change 3 days or 7 days, or whenever you see it's become dusty, from white color become gray color, then that's the time. Or you see secretion of water build up there, or you see a volume drop, then you do the suctioning also, it cannot improve the volume. Then you check this finally, then you change to another filter and try to check whether volume will goes up. Then finally, if goes up, then you know that the previous filter is getting wear and tear. There's a time to change. So I cannot answer you in exact how many days. So it really depends on the usage. So some patient family become experienced, they know either it's 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. But most likely in home ventilated patient, I experience is 3 days to 7 days. They will change the bacterial filter. Okay. For COVID-19, during COVID-19, if you're concerned about the aerosolization of virus, and if you are able to get to keep the stock for bacterial filter, you have sufficient stock. Of course, you can change daily, because now the problem facing in the entire world is to get this stock replenished. You know, the consumable is become medical consumable is very difficult
scarcity
to now, become scarcity because of the COVID-19. A lot of hospitals, they are purchasing tubing bacterial filter, try to survive their COVID-19 patient in the hospital. So I'm not sure whether you have enough stock to have to replace every day. But more likely, most of the home ventilated patient, they replace every 3 to 7 days.
3 to 7 days.
Or whenever needed, whenever they see the volume drop, it's not not because of the secretion, but because of the increased resistance or increased secretion or water inside. That time they will change the filter.
So the user does have to keep the ambience, the environment clean and tidy.
Yes.
Okay.
Normally, they will also put an air purifier or an aircon room.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah. So I
wait, Puan Hadijah. Yeah, you have a question.
What is the maintenance cost per month per person per patient on the average?
Okay, on the average, I would say the market price for the bacterial filter is about 15 ringgit. The tubing is about, I think 100 over to 200 ringgit. Depends on whether reusable or disposal. In reusable tubing is about 100 to 200. In disposable tubing is about, I think it's 25 ringgit or 30 ringgit. So this is the frequent maintenance for the bacterial filter and tubings. So if you are using a mask, normally a reusable mask will last you about 6 months to 1 year or even longer. So the mask cost, the market price, I think is between 600 to 800 ringgit for the oral nasal mask.
How do the patients so far maintain this cost? Is there any external or special assistant for maintenance?
I think this
For
one
the
I can.
machine, for the
Okay, Eddie,
machine
go ahead.
service maintenance, you actually, before you purchase a ventilator, my advice is you must always ask the vendor or the supplier to give you a quotation for all these consumables piece by piece, included the service maintenance. How much are they charged when come to the interval to service the machine? For life support ventilator, it can last at least 2 years or 10,000 hours operating hours before they need to do a major maintenance. The major maintenance could be very costly, I think between 5,000, 7,000 ringgit. So that's why I would encourage everyone who purchase a life support ventilator, you must have the consumer quotation, included the service item quotation from your vendors who are going to maintain your ventilator. I cannot answer you exactly what cost, but this is the cost you need to consider.
Like the B40 group, the consumable, can they get help from GKM or something like that so far?
I'm not sure about this part.
Now I just asking those patients that is, I mean the family that is looking after their patient, are they doing it on their own, supporting the cost, or is there some way of getting support or some sponsorship or from the maybe the JKM, the welfare or something like that?
Okay, Puan Hadijah, let me answer these questions. Okay, Eddie. What happened is for MND patients, some of the patients, they require NIV intervention supports. They will contact our society, and our society, we have donors to donate the device to us. So we list to them free of charge, whatever maintenance incurred, that's bear by MND Malaysia. So while they are on lease using our equipments, we recommend them to apply with JKM. So submit the application with JKM, depend on pending for approval. Sometimes it takes some time. So once JKM approve the device, JKM will deliver the officer will deliver the NIV to the patient. That's how it goes.
Okay.
You can check with JKM.
Yeah, it's just like other patient with disability, they buy wheelchair, they buy walking facility, all that sort of thing. So you can always have that arrangement. You have the tax exemption and all that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Puan Hadijah. Eddie, you can proceed.
Okay. This tubing type is for those tracheostomy patients. Sometimes they will choose to use this active pack or active flow tubing. But if you look at here, there's more line connected to the ventilator. There's a diaphragm inside the acceleration valve, and this type of tubing is very easily to have a secretion going inside the diaphragm and causing an acceleration problem. So if whoever use this tubing for tracheostomy patient, you really need to have a trained personnel or trained nurse at home to help to maintain this type of tubing. It's not easy. So that's why most of my patients who use pipette ventilator, they are using this type of simple setup. One filter, one tubing, airway connector, one lead valve, we call viscous fuel, and either one of these interface depends on invasive or non-invasive ventilator. So if you ask me whether should I use this complicated tubing or this basic tubing, we did do a randomized control trial, a study to check when we use these two different type of tubing on a tracheostomy patient, on ALS patient, is there a difference? The outcome is no significant difference in two type of tubing. Okay, this is to answer some of the patients who questioned me before. Why they should use this simple tubing. They found they use this anti-flow tubing without problem. I will not stop them from using this as long as they know how to maintain it. Okay, because this tubing also have good features in terms of measured volume. If they want to have very accurate tidal volume to be measured, this with a flow sensor can measure the tidal volume delivered to patient lung more accurately, okay, as compared to the acute tidal volume measured from this passive tubing system. Okay, so let's save all the technical part now. Now we can start with all the more lively non-technical sections. So how to choose the mask? Okay, basically you do not need to know this, because before you start the ventilator at home, the vendor will bring different kind of masks to let you to experience which mask you feel the most comfortable and which mask will give you the least air leaks. Then the mask is best for you. So it can be the oral nasal mask or nasal mask. Total face mask is not your option unless you are in the hospital, or unless for those patients suffering COVID-19. Now the total face mask become very popular. They're using this in the hospital for COVID-19 patients. Okay. So normally the most common mask for ALS patients is the Amara gel, the Amara mask, the oral nasal, or the Wisp mask. Okay. Why I also mentioned about nasal mask? I believe most of the BiPAP user is using Amara mask or the full face mask or oral nasal mask. But why I mentioned nasal mask here? Because when you awake, if you are not a natural mouth breather, you can close your mouth by yourself. You're not you're not a habitual mouth breather, always open the mouth. When you awake, you can change the mask from full face to nasal mask so that it can rest your face. Okay, to reduce rashes. Okay, so if you can keep these two set of masks, nasal and oral nasal at home from the very beginning when you first started using ventilator, you will find more comfort, more quality of life. Okay. At night when you sleep or daytime when you sleep, only you change to the oral nasal mask. Otherwise, when you awake, you use a nasal mask, because using the nasal mask, you can wear your spectacle, watch TV, watch newspaper, you can talk, you can eat, right? Okay, so on the right side here, you can see a table. Okay, I'm not able to discuss every point to you. I want you to focus when you use a mask ventilation, most of the time, what problem you face is the leaks. So that's why the best fit mask is very important. That's why to know how to realign the interface, adjust the strap is very important. How to fit the mask, the technique is very important. You can learn this from the vendor who supply you the mask. They will teach you and guide you how to use this mask interface. In coming months or 6 months or maybe another 3 more quarters coming, in US, this is already started with from Respironics. They have 2D and 3D technology now. They can use an iPad or iPhone plus a camera. From the scanning software, we can identify what mask is best fit you. Okay, so you don't have to manually put a mask on you and do the different fittings. So in order to prevent COVID-19 virus spread. Okay.
Eddie, can we hold for a while? Someone raised the hand just now. Kahao? Was it Kahao?
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, Kahao, you have a question?
Hi, Eddie. Lee here, Compass Medical. Regarding the Amara mask, right? And then we do provide the Amara View as well for the MND patient. So in University Hospital. So okay. I think maybe Joe also know about this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for highlighting that. So Amara View allow you to wear a spec as compared to Amara Gel. So okay, but my intention here is it depends. It's finally still come back to your comfort level. Which one is best comfort you? So so for the patient to choose the right mask, which give you the reduced air leaks. Okay.
So far
we also
from
have a new
our
technology coming.
okay.
So
Okay, Eddie.
any more questions?
You may continue, Eddie.
Okay. So humidifier. So if you found after you use ventilator, the next day morning you found you have a dry throat, and then you have a secretion problem, and you can that's the time maybe you can consider to add this active or passive humidification system. When I say passive, I'm referring to the bottom left here, the heat and moisture exchanger or heat and moisture exchanger with the filter elements. So this is a filter like a device. Normally we place near the patient. So when you exhale the air, when we exhale the exhale air, we contain the heat and moisture. So it will retain inside this HME. So when the new air coming in from the ventilator, the air will be reheat and re-moisturized before it go inside the airway. So if you ask me which way is more effective to promote the humidification to the patient, I will say for tracheostomy patient and pediatric patient is always highly recommended to use an active humidifier. So for the trilogy, we do not supply the humidifier. This is a third-party humidifier. And for the rest of the long life support ventilator, we do supply the humidifier, which you can assemble together with the ventilator device. Okay. So your doctor will inform you which one is the best for you after they check your hydration level when you are using the ventilator, okay, and secretion problems. Okay, now I want to cover one slide with the airway secretion management. Actually, I do not want to say more about this because end of August, before our medical day, we have another online sessions with an invited speaker from Austria. She will cover, Professor Amanda will cover more on this cough assist. Okay. So, but why I show you this here, because in order for tracheostomy patient, especially when you use invasive ventilation, you must be trained. The family member must be trained, or you must have a home nurse to know how to perform suctioning. Because if you're not careful, if the suction catheter go too deep inside the lung, it may traumatize the patient and cause the trachea wall to start to have some bleeding, and then it may cause infection, and finally it will bring to this pneumonia. So that's why someone need to learn the suctioning and tracheostomy care seriously at home when you use invasive ventilator. At the end of the presentation, I will show you a YouTube video link, so that after this workshop, you can watch the YouTube video created by one hospital from Singapore. They make a good video to describe, to explain what is the best tracheostomy care at home when using a home ventilator. So cough assist, save it for the end of August, another section. And this is just to let you know a lot of works here. You do not need to read everything. In order you know whether your coughing, your airway is okay to cough out all the secretion, you need to visit the hospital to do a spirometry check, so that the doctor will know whether you have the good peak cough flow to check your strength to cough out the secretion. Okay, so I will say this one from here. Okay, now come to upon Hadija, just some question about the oxygen. Okay, not all the ALS patients who use ventilator at home using oxygen. Most of them only have hypercapnic problem. They do not need extra oxygen to help them to breathe, okay, to have enough oxygen. But for pediatric patient or COPD patient, those lung cancer patient, if they need ventilator, normally they also need to have the oxygen concentrator. So since we have some patients here talking about using the oxygen concentrator here, I highlight a bit. Okay, you have to understand between the oxygen device you add in, there are two settings here, either FL2 in the ICU ventilator. When they have the oxygen source on the wall, the wall oxygen source will supply 100% oxygen. That time the doctor will set the fractional inspired oxygen, range from 21% to 100%. Depends on the patient needs. But when at home, normally you do not have this kind of high concentrated oxygen at home. You're using the oxygen generator, which we call the oxygen concentrator, where you set the oxygen flow rate. So oxygen flow rate, if you set 1 liter, is equivalent about approximately 24% FiO2. If you set 2 liter, it's approximately about 28% FiO2. FiO2 is a setting set in the ICU ventilator in the hospital when they have the high concentrated oxygen. So you do not need to know this basically. What you need to know is when you use oxygen at home, you must have the SpO2 monitor. We call pulse oximeter. Because this is a pulse oximeter, it can be a finger grip pulse oximeter, it can be a desktop type. You will measure the SpO2 and heart rate. Once you put the oxygen sensor, you put the SpO2 sensor on the patient's finger. Okay, so whatever flow rate you set, you ask the doctor what is a prescribed flow rate relevant for your patient, and what is a normal range SpO2 you need to achieve for your patient. And if the SpO2 dropping, do you allow to increase the flow rate from 1 liter to 2 liter? You must ask this. You must check this with your doctors. Okay, your doctor will tell you. If you get this Everflow concentrator, this machine can only deliver 1 liter to 5 liter oxygen, which is equivalent to 40% FiO2. Normally, patients only allowed to go home if they only dependent on FiO2 not more than 40%. You know, if the patient in ICU using a ventilator, for those acute patients, they can use a FiO2 up to 100%. So if the patient is still dependent more than 40%, normally they are not fit to go home. They must stay in the hospital. Okay, so that's why if you use a concentrator up to 5 liter, this is fit to stay at home. But if you need higher oxygen, you need to go back to hospital. Okay, and just now there's a question from Puan Hadijah asking about safety when use oxygen at home. Actually, for all this BiPAP, if you use the circuit bleeding, means you add the oxygen connector, and then this tip here, you add the oxygen tubing, connect to the concentrator. You want to, you afraid of fire hazard when someone at home maybe smoking, taking cigarette, and causing the oxygen to explode. So you can add this one-way valve behind the oxygen circuit bleeding, the entrainment port. So when the oxygen delivered here, the ventilator air coming here, the air will not backflow to the ventilator. So this can prevent fire hazard. Okay. Of course, it's always recommend whoever use oxygen concentrator at home, not to have any smoker go near to the patient. Okay, this is this must be a very high priority precaution to everyone who use oxygen concentrator at home. Okay, any questions?
Okay, Puan Hadijah.
Hi, Eddie.
Yeah.
Lee here, Compass Medical.
Lee, can you save your question privately, because this is for patient, this section.
Oh, okay. Okay,
this is not for you to ask question. This is for patient.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Puan Hadijah.
Yes. The house, the room where the patient is, has it to be aircon?
It's good to have aircon for patient comfort, and also for all the medical devices, they have the operating temperature. Normally, the ventilator is up to 40 degrees Celsius.
24 hours running, 7 days a week.
Not necessarily you need to turn on the aircon 24 hours. What I'm trying to say is for patient comfort, let's say they want to go to bed, they want to sleep, that time you can turn on the aircon. And without the aircon, at least you turn on the fan so that you can keep the room temperature below 40 degrees Celsius is good enough already. Where most of all the devices I show here, the operating temperature normally can go up to 40 degrees Celsius.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's best with the aircon for the patient. It's comfortable for the patient as well, and then the aircon will actually temperature of the device as well.
Okay.
The aircon
Maintenance
is not
as
for the device. The aircon is for the patient
but
comfort.
for the
You can
patient
use a
comfort,
fan also. Yeah, because the device like ventilator, the operating temperature can go up to 40 degrees Celsius. It will still operate normally for those non-life support ventilator.
But the ventilator has go on 24 hours throughout all every day.
Yeah, the ventilator you can use non-stop 24 hours. If you are using the life support ventilator, the blower can last for continuous use, but every 2 years or every 10,000 hours or 17,500 hours, there's a requirement to change the blower.
The servicing and all that to be done.
Yeah, there is a servicing required to be done.
One more question. Sorry, yeah.
No problem.
it's okay, Puan Khadijah.
Okay, with all this, do you get assistance from the hospice to come and help the family to take care or something? I mean, the hospice Malaysia, they have that service, and are they giving? Are you all working together with them? Hospice.
With Hospice Malaysia.
Yeah. None of you are like for hospice.
Hospice Malaysia, okay, sometimes there are cases, the patient, they register with us, MND Malaysia, and then the patient, they do register themselves with the Hospice Malaysia as well. So that means they are seeking assistance from both sides.
Yeah, because they can send somebody to come and help with the maybe maintenance exercise or that sort of things, isn't it? Yeah. But normally, normally from some of the patient that I know, if they need home assistance, you should tell the doctor to apply for palliative care, and the palliative they will refer to the doctor in palliative unit, and they will be then
refer the patient to hospice.
Yeah, and they will come. They will go that way.
Yes.
You ask your doctor that you want palliative care, then they come and assess that sort of thing.
Okay, Puan Khadijah is delivering a message that any patients, if they require any assistance from Hospice Malaysia, they can actually deem to inform the attending physicians, the attending doctors of the patient, to refer the patient to Hospice Malaysia for palliative care service. That's right, Puan Khadijah?
The attending doctor, because in UMMC there is a palliative doctor, a person who is in charge of palliative. So that means you, like I have one patient, then that attending doctor will write to the palliative doctor, and then the palliative doctor will write to the hospice, and within days they will send somebody to assess the situation, what are the needs that is required. Yeah, that's something.
So a message to all the okay,
but this is only available in KL, unfortunately. I mean, because Hospice Malaysia is only in here. But I know there are other hospices everywhere, but they are of different setup. But maybe they can operate also. Understand?
There are few.
Yeah.
Yes, there are few. Hospice Malaysia covers the city area. So what happens if, let's say, the patient is further out, like there are also like other hospices, Kasih Hospice or Hospice Klang. So whenever the patient requires any help, talk to the doctors, and then the doctors will actually refer the hospice service that's available for the patient and alternative options. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Eddie, you may continue.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, this is to show you the battery available with all the ventilators. So you decide how long the battery can last. It depends on how far your house to hospital. If in case of emergency, you need to send the patient back to hospital. Then you discuss with your vendor how long the battery you need to last when you use a ventilator to transit the patient from home to hospital. Okay, so I think it's very clear cut here. To mobilize the patient out from house to have some outdoor activities, you can choose to have a wheelchair mounting, trolley mounting, or carrying bag. Okay, I touched a little bit about the cleaning maintenance. You may print screen or screenshot here if you are concerned about how to clean the tubing, mask, even the device at home. So this is a protocol we built for align with World Health Organization and Central Disease Control of US for our ventilators. Okay, so I don't want to read for you. You can print screen. So I proceed. Okay, for some of you who use a disposable single patient use tubing, because of COVID-19, you will find difficulty to replenish your stock, your consumable stock. So this is the outline, the guideline we provided for those single patient use tubing or disposable tubing user. Because we also received call asking, can they reuse their disposable tubing? Now they face a challenge to replenish the stock for this tubing. So the last part here, you can see hand wash the patient secured on you. You can just print screen here if you want. So this is talking about our concentrator. What is the cleaning protocol and disinfection guidelines for our oxygen concentrators. So other recommendation, let me read through this. This is very important. To alter any home ventilator setting, it shall only perform upon your doctor orders, because sometimes when the vendors, my distributor, or even myself, we go to patient house, some patient will ask us to change some setting for them. We definitely will say no, because unless the doctor give the consent, okay, give the orders. Because we do not know your oxygen, your CO2, your pH level. Whatever setting change will change your body metabolic. We do not we cannot measure this at home for you. Okay, your oxygen, CO2, your pH. So that's why we are not there to change the setting for you at home. I hope you understand this part. The second one is second ventilator external battery pack is recommended if you're using a life support ventilator. If you have life support, you use a ventilator for more than 16 hours every day. And for non-invasive ventilation, it's good to have one reserve mask. In case one mask fail, one mask become wear and tear, you have one reserve mask. And I also found that whoever have two masks can use interchangeably. They can one clean and then they tell another one, and one become dirty, they change to another one. If you can interchange the mask along the time period, the mask actually can last longer. The lifetime for the mask can last longer. Otherwise, some masks can only last 3 months, especially the strap. Some masks can last up to 6 months. Some is up to 1 year or more than a year. And every invasively ventilated patient, tracheostomy patient, you need to learn how to manage the tracheostomy tube. Inside the tracheostomy tube, there is a inner cannula. So this is talking about the cannula, because if the cannula has a secretion, and if the fan mucus become hardening, you find that very difficult to remove the inner cannula. That's why you need to clean the cannula quite frequently, so that you do not want the cannula to stick together with the tracheostomy tube. Finally, you will find difficulty to remove cannula when there's a blockage and causing ventilation problems. Humidifier is mandatory requirement for invasive ventilation. It's also useful for non-invasive ventilation if there is a dry throat syndrome or coughing problem or secretion problem. You discuss with doctor, they will guide you when to add the humidifier. In neurovascular disease patient with cough insufficiency and in children, selective use of pulse oximeter. This I already discussed just now when I talk about the oxygen concentrator and the pulse oximeter. Invasively or tracheostomy ventilated patient, adult or children, require battery supply suction pump. So you need to source a suction pump. Recommended flow rate is more than 25 liters per minute. And if you can afford, get another second unit suction pump, or at least you learn how to use a ventilation bag in case the patient need to readmit to hospital during emergency. So at the end, I will show you a YouTube video link so you can watch after this section. Bacterial filter fitted at the point I already mentioned this bacterial filter. Okay, what parameter to monitor during mechanical ventilation? Okay, now I will start to go slow to guide you what to monitor for the from the ventilator. So depends on what ventilator you use at home. It could be the simple BiPAP, the BiPAP Air40, or the life support ventilator. So basically, if you look at the screen here, you see a lot of reading, right? And this reading sounds not familiar to everyone, right? Because you're not trained to read all this reading. But what I want you to focus here is basically only four parameters. Okay. What I call the axial tidal volume, number 1, VTE. Number 2 is a respiratory rate, RR. Number 3 is the minute ventilation, min ven. Number 4 is the leaks. Okay, it depends on the model of ventilator you use. If you look at the top right here, this is a simple BiPAP. You see this pressure, this VTE is here, 535. RR is here, 25. Minute ventilation is here, 9 liters per minute. Leak is here, 22 liters per minute. Okay, so if you're using this device, you look at here, you see the VTE 325. The leak is 30. Minute ventilation 3.9. The RR is 12 breath per minute. You use a triology device. You look at here, you see the VTE 600, and then the leak is 24. Minute ventilation is 7.2. The R is 16. Okay, let me go one by one. Okay, why do you need to know the axial tidal volume in each of these ventilator? Because how much air go inside your lung depends on the VTE. How much volume of air recorded here, and you need to check with your doctor what is desire, what is optimum tidal volume. Even though we are using a pressure control ventilators, we set the pressure, we do not set the volume, but you need to know at what volume of air is enough to sustain our life, our oxygen level in the body. So that's why you need to learn, you need to read this reading called VTE. The next one is how much volume, how frequent the air open and close in order to get enough volume that relate to your respiratory rate, right? Your breathing rate. So your breathing rate can be a machine control rate, or when you trigger a breath, it can be your spontaneous rate. So if you look at the rate here, you see RR 16, right? From this triology device, RR is 16. So let's say if the rate setting is 10. Why you see 16 here? Because 16 minus 10 means 6 breathing rate is triggered by the patient's own breathing effort. So if you see a dot here on this device, let me bring up my cursor. Do you see a dot here? Okay, when the patient breathing in and out, okay, this pressure bar will raise and down, will up and down. And you see this dot occurred when patients have their own spontaneous breathing. Same for another device, you see this dot here, same for this device. The dot I think is here, somewhere here, okay? So you will see patient effort whenever there's a spontaneous breathing, there's a rate more than what you said, recorded here, RR, then you know there is an effort from the patient. But sometimes if the machine leak compensation is not good, or if there is an excessive leak from the mask, or even from the tracheal tube, when the tracheal tube there's a cuff balloon pressure reduced, or when there's a loose connection between the interface, when the lead start to increase, you will see the volume drop. You will see the rate increase sometimes because some machine, if the algorithm is not good, they will take the lead as a trigger effort from the patient. Okay, you just listen here, and I'm not able to show you using a hands-on session or with my machine. But when I created a lead using my machine, you will see sometimes the rate will increase because the machine wrongly detected there is an effort from patient. So that's a very important you must learn. You must always check on your patient. Besides looking at the screen here for all this number, you must always observe your patient, check your patient chest whether it's rising. If they are conscious, you also ask them whether they feel comfortable. If you have the SpO2 monitor, you have the oximeter, a finger sensor on them. You check your pulse oximeter, check the SpO2. whether it's still fall into the normal range like 92% to 95, 98%, or not go below 90% or not go below 88%. It's also very important to ask your doctor what is a desired SpO2 for those tracheostomy patient or invasive ventilation patient who become highly dependent on ventilator. So you must also know what is the normal range of your SpO2. Okay. So the other one I didn't touch just now is a minute ventilation. Okay, minute ventilation basically is this two, the tidal volume multiplied with respiratory rate. So if you look at here, the machine here, RR is 16, VT is 603, right? So 603 in milliliter, you will convert to liter, becomes 0.6 liter, 0.6 times 16. This will become your minute ventilation, okay, 7.2. So this is how we calculate minute ventilation. In 1 minute, how much liter of air enter our lung? That is minute ventilation. Okay, why I say minute ventilation? If you forget how to monitor your VTE and RR on patient, at least you need to know what is the normal range of your minute ventilation on your care patient, on your pulse. So let's say it's normally LS patient should be between 4 liter to 6 liter per minute. That's become normal. Lower than 4 or higher than 6 or much higher, that is normal. Too high or too low is no good. Okay, so if you forget how to monitor rate or tidal volume, at least you need to learn how to monitor minute ventilation. Because in 1 minute, how much volume of air enter the lung? This is minute ventilation. Basically, these two multiply together. You monitor 1 parameter equal to monitor 2 parameters here. Okay, so this is my point. And last one, the leak. Leak, you need to understand there are 2 types of leaks. This value cannot be 0. The leak value on the ventilator cannot be 0 here because there's always intentional leaks here, which occurred because when you use a single limb tubing, you attach to an acceleration valve in order to flush out the CO2. Whatever leak, whatever air flush out from the acceleration valve, the leak valve, to flush out the CO2, that is the leaks. So this is the intentional leak. So whatever I call here an intentional leak is from the patient. Let's say for tracheostomy patient, if the tracheostomy tube, the cuff balloon reduce pressure, it will create the leaks. If the airway connectors if the tubing connection of the mask is loosened from wearing on the patient face, so it will also causing the unintentional leaks. When we do suctioning, we open the suctioning port from the airway connector to perform suctioning. That time also we created the unintentional leaks. Normally the leak should fall between 20 to 30 for nasal mask user. It should fall between 25 to 35 for oral nasal mask user. It should fall between 45 to 60 liter per minute for tracheostomy patient. Especially when they open the mouth, the leak will climb up to maybe 60 liter per minute. So you must always monitor the leak so that you know whether all the interface is connected improper. Okay, I stop here for a while for questions. Is there any questions?
Any question from the audience? Okay, Eddie, then we can continue.
Okay, so we almost the last my slide here. Okay, for the basic pipette ventilator, they also provide these 4 additional information. We call therapy hours. Last night, how many hours of use you've been using? For the past 1 week, in average, how many hours of use? In the 1 month, how many hours of use? The more you use, of course, it will help you more, correct? And this one here is to tell you if the mask fit, when you're using this pipette device, it will show you all this. If the mask fit is below 90%, there's a time you need to check your mask fitting or change to a new mask. Okay. So, and then this is the AHI for ALS patient or motor neuron disease patient. Most of some of you have sleep apnea or sleep problem because your upper airway is blocking. But this is valued by this index we call AHI, apnea hypopnea index. So if you found this from the pipette, if you read this more than 15, maybe you need to check with your doctor whether you should do a home sleep study or polygraphy and then finally maybe you need to increase your EPAC settings to help you to open up more blockage from the upper airway to throat, so that you can breathe better, to have a more better quality of sleep. So this AHI is related to sleep apnea. Okay? So this is additional information can be provided by Philips pipette machine. Okay, let me go to last one, how to manage ventilator alarm. I will just play you a short video here.
Hello, Eddie. Mr. Eddie.
Yeah.
There's a question. If there is a recurring alarm for low minute ventilation, what does this mean? The question says.
Okay, low minute ventilation alarms. Okay. Maybe let me play this video first, because this relates to this video also. Low minute ventilation alarm is explained in this video as well. Is that all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let me start this video so that you know all these alarm settings. Okay, let me start from here.
Okay. Eddie, there's no sound.
No sound?
No.
No sound.
Okay, wait, let me.
Okay, before you share, on the left button, click the share sound, share audio as well.
Okay, share computer sound. Okay.
So you.
Okay, can you?
12,000 events.
Can you hear the sound now?
Including ventilator setting changes and alarms. Here, we will review each of the alarms you are able to set and what benefit they bring to ventilation. The circuit disconnect alarm is a high priority alarm. It occurs when the breathing circuit is disconnected, has a large leak, or if the patient airway is completely occluded. The device will continue to operate. This alarm will automatically terminate when the circuit is reconnected, the leak is fixed, or when the occlusion in the airway is removed. You can set this alarm to trigger between 5 and 60 seconds from the moment the trilogy detects the disconnection. You should not rely on any single alarm to detect a circuit disconnect condition. The low tidal volume, the low minute ventilation, low respiratory rate, and apnea alarms should be used in conjunction with the circuit disconnect alarm. Speaking valves, heat moisture exchangers, humidifiers, and filters can create additional circuit resistance and may affect the performance of alarms chosen for circuit disconnect protection. The apnea alarm monitors for the absence of spontaneous breath. If the apnea alarm is enabled, you can then set an apnea rate. The apnea rate permits an increase of the backup rate until the patient is spontaneously breathing. Note that the apnea alarm is only intended for spontaneously breathing patients. Controlled, machine-triggered breaths are not counted when the apnea alarm is enabled. Low VTE alarm. This alarm is triggered when the tidal volumes exhaled by the patients are less than the alarm setting. Enabling this alarm in AVAPs will cause the alarm to be triggered only after the device has reached the maximum IPAP pressure setting. High VTE alarm. This alarm is triggered when the tidal volumes exhaled by the patient are higher than the alarm setting. Low minute ventilation alarm. Minute ventilation is respiratory rate times tidal volume. The low and high alarms can be set between 0.2 liters per minute and 99 liters per minute and should be set according to the patient's breath rate and tidal volume. The high minute ventilation alarm is particularly useful in pediatrics where there is a high respiratory rate. The low respiratory rate alarm is useful in spontaneous modes such as CPAP and spontaneous. High respiratory rate alarm is useful for indicating issues in a variety of patients, including pediatric. Once you are happy with your settings, click the Finish button, followed by the Exit button. You are now ready to begin ventilating.
Okay. So, is there any question about alarms?
Okay. Any more question? Eddie, can you on your camera?
Right? Sorry.
Cannot see.
Where's my camera? Okay, I start my video. Okay,
Uh,
can see my screen?
yes, resources and reference.
Okay.
We are almost done already. I think this is the last slide, last few slides. Okay, Eddie.
So if since there is no question about alarm, so I proceed to this resources and reference. So after today, if you feel like you want to learn more about how to operate a trilogy ventilator, you can go to this learningconnection.philips.com. But what I fully recommend you to watch is from here, from Tan Tock Seng Hospital. They have created a series of video to help the patient at home, whoever use a home ventilation. So especially for the tracheostomy care, I think for tracheostomy patient, this is very good reference source for you. So you can you just go to YouTube and search TTSH home mechanical ventilation. Then you can see all this video listing there. And whatever I presented today, most of my material is from this EIS journals. So how to choose a ventilator for home mechanical ventilation. Professor Gregoretti has listed out all the criteria there. So if you like to find out more details on home mechanical ventilator, this is a very good article. You can just Google and type this choosing a ventilator for home mechanical ventilation, then you will find this journal. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Eddie, we have a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie, continue.
Yeah. So any questions? So this
Eddie.
is almost the end of our session. Before I open for questions, let me finish my last slide. Is for those at home and those join today's session or not able to join today's session, all of you are healthcare heroes. And I want you to know you are not alone. Whenever you have questions, you just connect to the right people, and we are all here to help each other. Okay, so we are with you.
Yes.
Don't worry. Okay.
Yes. Like what Eddie mentions, the fight is not alone. In fact, today we have few organizations together. Puan Hadijah is from the Rare Diseases Malaysia, and then Mr. Hong Son Ho, he's from the Sarawak Life Care Society. So I am from MND Malaysia. So what we do is we provide a platform connecting the patients, the family members, everyone together. So in this fight, you are not alone. Whatever you are facing, you are confused, just connect with the right people, and then the dot will start connecting with each other. Eddie, we have a question from our Singapore friends. They have a question on low minute vent.
Yeah.
And then the second question, okay, the first question is low minute vent.
Yeah. Okay, they want to know what is no minute ventilation alarms?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So basically, when you use a simple BiPAP machine, they only have three major alarms for you to set. One they call the circuit disconnection. The second one is apnea alarm. The last one is the low minute ventilation. So if you look at my screen here on the top left, what is minute ventilation? Minute ventilation is acute tidal volume. We measured in liter per minute, multiply with the respiratory rate, measured in breath per minute. So which means the VTE times rate become the minute ventilation. So if your minute ventilation achieved on the ventilator showing here is between 4 to 6 liters per minute for ALS patient, normally this is normal, which means your rate and volume is working fine. But if let's say if your low minute ventilation alarm, you set let's say you see here, you know it's 4 is normal for you. You can set 3 as your low minute ventilation alarm. So if anything go below 3, the machine will alarm and inform you you have a low minute ventilation achieved on the patient. Okay, then you need to take some action on your patient. So what action you need to take on the patient? You know, minute ventilation is related to rate and tidal volume, right? So first thing, you look at your rate. Is it the rate drop drop below what prescribed by a doctor? Let's say a doctor told you, oh, this patient must have at least 400 ml. So you check if this is not because of the rate dropping too low, then the next thing you check if this is not because of the volume dropping too low, lower than 400, let's say the volume is 400, but the rate becomes, let's say 0, meaning patient not trigger or meaning circuit disconnection. It can also cause this low minute ventilation. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
And if there's a leaking, the leaking causing the volume drop, let's say drop below 400, your rate is more normal, but rate become maybe 100 or 50 because there is a leakage in the tubing system. It can also cause the volume to drop. So whenever you see low minute ventilation, first thing in your mind, is it my volume problem or my rate problem? If my rate is normal, what causing the volume to drop? Is it the leakage, or is it the circuit disconnection, or is it my alarm set too sensitive? Is it 3 is too sensitive to set as a low minute ventilation alarm? Normally I will set 1 liter per minute. Because sometimes too much alarm, the patient will be worried, the family will be worried when there's too much alarm at home. Okay.
Our audience have a question. I have this recurring alarm when lying down or sleeping. What alarm is that? The recurring alarm.
I think
yeah, I need to know what kind of alarms. When you say recurring alarm,
the patient means low minute ventilation alarm.
Okay, so when you see low minute ventilation alarm, no matter you're lying down or what, you have to suspect. You have to suspect either patient not performing any effort to breathe. That's why the rate is dropping, or maybe because of the circuit is disconnected. That's why the rate becomes 0. Or if this is a volume problem, you need to check, is it because there is an air leaks due to the circuit disconnection, or due to any mass interface loosen, causing a lot of excessive leaks that cause the volume dropping.
Yes.
Okay? If finally you check everything, also cannot solve the problem. If I will ask you another question, does the patient is tracheostomized? And if you say yes, the patient is tracheostomized, then I will ask you, do you use the HME? Hear the patient. But most of the time, low minute ventilation can occur on tracheostomized patient, invasive ventilation, because they are using HME also. It may also cause this kind of different funny alarms. So that time I will ask you, can you change to the new HME and check whether the alarm is still arise, still coming back, still persists.
Okay. Any more questions from our audience? Okay, so it seems like no question from the audience. We are at the end of our sessions. Thank you so much for Eddie for sharing with us today. It's more on the educational and then on the technical supports.
I hope not too technical until everyone left fall asleep.
At least some understanding. Puan Hadijah also was asking on the ventilators and all these, because somehow or rather is useful to our patients. Actually, home ventilator for the past 20 years, if I'm not mistaken, Eddie, right? For the past 20 years, the home ventilation technology has been improved, and then it has been developed and evolved until now. It becomes common, right, Eddie?
Yeah. From a very bulky machine they call iron lung, which deliver the negative pressure. I didn't show you the history. Actually, history all started from 1930 when we first started polyol-ectothermic. The ventilator first design in the market is like a freezer. It's like an iron, a big piece of iron. They call iron lung. Actually, I want to show that, but I don't know whether it's have the interest to study the history. Yeah.
So over the years, patients have difficulties. Instead of putting them in the ICU, they cannot go home. So now with the advancement of technology, with NIVs and all these mechanical home ventilators, basically the patient transfer the ICU conditions back to the house with all these respiratory assistance, right, Eddie?
Yeah, actually the idea is to help everyone to save more money. You know, healthcare cost is a very high cost, very high burden to everyone. So that's why I just saw when Puan Khadijah asking some cost question, price question, right? By right, I do not want to answer, but I still try my best to answer you because I know healthcare is really a cost burden to everyone. So that's why whoever need to go home, I believe you already do your mathematics. You know, to stay in ICU much more costly than staying at home using those home ventilator. And of course, you also want to know whether should I buy or should I lease to rent the machine. I know your concern is to save more money. I know that. So that's why my answer is if you think you are using the ventilator for long term, if you think you have the expertise, skill, and knowledge to be able to use a ventilator at home, of course you purchase it. But if you think you don't have it, you rent it or you try to get a good hard vendor to loan you at least for more days, so that at least you see the outcome first before you decide to purchase or to rent, or maybe to put the patient long term in the hospital. So that's a decision to make between you and your doctors. You really need to talk to your doctor to discuss what's going to happen from now to future.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Home ventilator supports, it's part of the palliative care services. And then palliative care services is part of our MND Malaysia's services. Because MND Malaysia does deliver in 3 areas and palliative care is one of them. So some of our patients in need of mechanical home ventilators, we does provide the service for them. We does lease the equipments to them free of charge. So whatever the maintenance and expenses incurred, the society bear the charges and all these things, pending on the patient's financial conditions. If let's say the patient comes from the low income group, then the society will provide the supports free of charge and all these things. And then if the patient can afford, then normally the patient will actually purchase the device themselves or they lease it from the vendors themselves. Okay. Puan Khadijah. Okay, Puan Khadijah.
Okay, one last question. Is the okay, when the patient buys things from we can get tax exemption, but the product must be listed with JKM to get approval for the custom tax exemption. Are you all registered with JKM or not to give that facility?
That one, you mean who? MND Malaysia?
No.
Oh, the company.
I'm saying you want to buy a ventilator.
What I know is our medical devices is always have to register a MDA, Medical Device Authority. Yeah. But for the test assumption wise, I think I'm not sure whether we have registered with the custom, just how you mentioned, the JKM.
JKM, because then JKM will then have to notify the custom that these are items that are approved for tax exemption.
But if let's say it's purchased from a vendor, that one, it depends on the vendor's application, right? If let's say the vendor themselves, the ABC company that a customer purchased from, if the company is not registered with the JKM for that, so they shouldn't have the waiver, right?
There is no tax exemption. There is no tax exemption because the last meeting, I mean, before the change of government, because we were asking for tax exemption for a lot of things and all that, so they said, so you must get the companies that is selling, the vendors, registered with them. So they will be registered with JKM. So the JKM will notify the customs that when we purchase, we can get tax exemption.
So that one have to check with the vendor themselves. But then, Eddie, you don't supply to end user, what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe the care provider, like Mr. Lee, can
answer care. That one is a care provider, lah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe they are not aware. Maybe they are not aware of this provision. It was about.
But thanks for mentioning it. So now at least the care provider will have something to look into.
I'll check with the KM again and see whether there's any changes, because now there's between then and now there's two government changes. So I'll check, but I follow back with the, whether there's any change in the situation, because there's a lot of things when people do operation to put the steel in for the OI and all that costs money, so you want to take exemption. So I'll check with them, and then when I get information, I'll inform you all so that you can tell the vendors. Okay.
Okay. All right, thanks. We are at the end of our sessions. Dicky?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Eddie, for a very informative session. I think we had a fairly interactive session with all the participants, and I'd like to thank the participants here. And please, just a gentle reminder, please follow us and like our page on Facebook, MND Malaysia. And if you had difficulty in catching up with all the information during this session, please watch the replay as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. The replay for this session, we will post it and update it in our MND Malaysia Facebook page. So do like our page and follow our updates. The replay session will be posted on the Facebook in the next 2 days. Let us do some checkings and then to upload the session in full. So meanwhile, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Puan Hadijah. Puan Hadijah is from Rare Disease Malaysia. Mr. Hong Sung Ho is from the Sarawak Life Care Society. And then Eddie Wong is from Philips Malaysia. And then we have our friends from Singapore. And we have our volunteers. Mr. Su. Mr. Su is our chairman.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Su have a closing speech.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Joe. Actually, this is not a session for speech because you have been listening to an expert for quite some time already. But I think it is good time that we take this opportunity to thank Mr. Eddie Wong, who is from Philips Malaysia Respironic Divisions. Now he is very resourceful and he is very knowledgeable on these NIVs and so on. Now I think that the sessions, to some extent, it is technical, but then on the other hand, we look at it, there are many things that will remind us when we make use of the NIV, or at least we know something about NIV. Yeah. Secondly is the sessions is very useful because during the sessions, we have a lot of opportunity to exchange information. For example, just Dato' Hadijah has mentioned that, well, there are areas where we have to look to help the patients to reduce costs, for example, tax exemptions and all these things. These are very useful information that we get from these sessions. Yeah. Of course, I would also like to thank all the participants who have attended these sessions, even though it's not very, very long, but then it's long enough to give you quite a lot of information. Now, as mentioned by Mr. Joe, we have people coming from Sarawak, from Singapore, from different parts of Malaysia. Many of them are patients and many of them are caregivers. Your participations encourages to go forward a little bit so that next time we will have more sessions of this nature. We are planning to have. Yeah? Of course, actually just now there was one doctor from UMMC. I think two, isn't it? Lydia and Dr. David Kabila. So in case you have anything related to medical issues, we can always refer to our medical advisors. I would like to also thank Mr. Joe, Dr. Teki, and who else?
Thanks
And
everyone for joining us.
everyone. But in particular, these are the people who are responsible for making this possible for many of us to participate. Thank you, yeah. So no doubt, sometimes we do face a little bit of a technical problem because of the network. Sometimes say unstable, so you may not be able to hear something. All right, doesn't matter.
Sorry, just now.
No, don't worry, don't worry.
Okay, Mr. Su, go ahead.
Well, if you really want to
Sorry,
have a
just now because
replay,
I was locked out twice.
okay. Yeah. Never mind. Sometimes it's my side, not your side. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Okay, this is a new technology we want to make use of. So once again, all of you, thank you very much for participating in this session. This is actually the first of it. There may be more to come. We will inform you as and when we have planned out what we need to do, what we want to do. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Su.
you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all
Yeah,
for joining. Thank you.
I think Mr. Joe, you want to say something also?
No.
Okay,
Go ahead,
good. Thank
Mr.
you.
Su.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Yes.
everyone, thank you so much. Our session for today has come to an end. You may log out, and then please do like our Facebook, MND Malaysia, to follow our latest informations and the replay. Thank you so much. Eddie, Vicky, and Mr. Su, or Benny, can you all stay back? Okay, thank you so much. You all can sign out.
Okay.
Bye. Puan Hati.
Bye-bye,
Yeah,
bye-bye.
thank you.
So now it's still
Mr. Uy,
recording.
thanks. Okay.
So,
Who else is
we will see you
Rahman
later,
Zaid?
Eddie.
Sorry.
We
Mr.
will
Su,
see you
what are
later.
Yeah, okay. So I have to sign out.
Eddie, wait. Wait.